Special meeting of council, Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any late items? I don't think so. Haven't heard of any. And public input? Do we have Mr. Gray in the audience? Or is...
Hi, I think you know me, but I will definitely introduce myself. My name is Craig Gray, and I live at 1951 Merritt Avenue. And what is it Arnold Schwarzenegger said? I'm back. I'm addressing two issues, but basically carrying one issue all the way through it. I know that when Sean knows what's going to come, because I've given him a little bit of a forewarning. I have this really sad feeling we keep putting the cart before the horse. We've had a lot of issues come before council, and they've been decided, and I was going through all the council meetings to try and find out how many were decided when people were opposed to an issue, how many were being decided in Merritt citizens' favor. And the one big issue that comes to mind, including in this bylaw 5.1, which I will not be here for the public hearing, I will leave that to other more eloquent people, and that is the fact of water. Mrs. Brown or Mr. Grays or anybody who's putting water on their lawn and spent years in this town paying taxes, raising their children, is sitting there watching all those hard years of work literally crumble and disappear. And yet, according to our illustrious CAO, we have tons of water. We have 3 massive aquifers. We actually are floating on water. And yet the province comes out with a drought warning of 44 and says you can't use water. Our wells have not gone down. We have plenty of water. Yes, we need a better system. We need some more introductions to it. But this council is going ahead with major subdivisions, major bylaws, which I note on one is that building on Vote Street, the one that's being constructed, fails one of the bylaws you just passed recently as far as a mess outside of the place. And we need to start slowing the process down, listening to our citizens, and putting the horse before that cart. We need infrastructure. We need this water. It is not right for the citizens who have lived here for 30, 40, 50 years to suffer because some developer comes in and makes a fortune off of a new subdivision. I thank you very much for your time, and I will always be your friend. Take care. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Gray, you started the conversation with the provincial government that brought an edict down for us to go into level 4. Our hands are tied, and you know that, so please stop giving misinformation. And there is nothing the city can do because the provincial government has put that edict out to go to level 4, okay? So that's first and foremost. The second thing is, are we the only community in British Columbia that has water restrictions? Remember, this is a provincial edict that has come down to all communities. So are we the only community in the province that is doing water rationing right now?
No, lots of... Would you like an answer?
Yes.
Or would you have something else you'd like to ask?
No, I'm waiting.
Okay. Lots of cities have water restrictions during the summer months. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Also, very, very few cities in BC sit on a massive aquifer, 3 massive aquifers as we do. The edict from the province has no bearing at all on our water situation. It has a bearing on what is outside of our community. It has nothing to do with the amount of water that's available to our city, nor that restricts that amount of it. So,
can I get clarification from that from Mr. Smith here?
Mm-hmm.
The provincial edict comes down and tells the city that we need to put water restrictions in. What are you saying that it doesn't affect the city? Of course it affects the city. Mr. Smith, could I get clarification on that? Because I'm confused.
Okay. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Luck. So, As usual, I think the accuracy lies in the middle, and the devil is in the
Exactly.
details of these things.
That's
So the
fine.
province establishes drought levels, but the city establishes a response to those drought levels. So it is not the province that is saying exactly what we must and must not do in relation to water use, though they do frequently meet with us and discuss what our responses are going to be at certain drought levels. And so drought level 4 is historically where we've gone to no watering of lawns, and then what we've talked about this year is, and in hearing from feedback from the community, well, what about trees which offer ecological value? What about flowers and gardens and other things? And so that's why we've encouraged those things to be continued, but it's absolutely the case that what's in place right now is not watering lawns. And we've heard lots of concern about this from all kinds of different reasons. From a fire safety perspective, that's something that people have raised, and in talking with the fire chief, if those grasses are kept short, the fire intensity from dry grasses burning is minimized. But the big thing is I want everyone to know it, and I'll talk about it here, is if it becomes likely or imminent that wildfire embers are going to threaten our community, we're not going to be saying, okay guys, continue watering restrictions. It's going to be wet your grasses, wet your roof. You want to raise the relative humidity to protect against those fire embers. But again, we've had this discussion, and I'm always happy to have the discussion again, but I'm hesitant where this isn't a set agenda item to dive too deep into the water issue unless council has specific questions. So.
Thank you. And I just want to state that when lawns do go unwatered for a while and become dry, they still recover when the rains come. That's been the 60-year history that I've been here.
The problem is, Your Worship, that the trees and the shrubs, when Granny goes out to water her lawn, she's watering the trees and the shrubs and the bushes that she's cultivated for 30 or 40 years. For her to sit outside, or any of us to sit outside for 3/4 of an hour watering our trees. I have a cedar tree. That cedar tree will last a very short period of time. Anyways, I know what your time limit is. I think Prashant took most of it.
We're not stopping them from watering them. We're asking them to use handheld.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I could do an option of minutes here, but what I want to do is ask for a motion to move item number 6.1, our scholarship award item, up before our public hearing. So does anyone have? Okay, thank you. And do we have? So Luck and Etchart, and all in favor? Opposed, none. It is unanimous, and we will move that up. So we won't put Ms. Clausen and her family waiting for an hour or whatever that turns out to be before we give her her scholarship. Now we're into 4.1, the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on July 20th, 2021. Do I have a mover? Christopherson and seconder in chart. And any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, none, and that's carried. So now we will go directly to our 2021 City of Merritt Council Scholarship Award. And let me get my notes here. So at the March 9th, 2021 regular meeting, Council established a City of Merritt Council Scholarship Award. This annual award is bestowed on 2 grade 12 graduates who plan to continue on in post-secondary education. Preference is given to students who have shown leadership in civic activities or volunteered in the community. This award is for $1,000 to each graduate to support their continuing education. I'm proud to announce that tonight's winner is Katie Clausen, and she is with us this evening. And I just want to say a little bit about Katie. She's an outstanding student, a community volunteer who's recently graduated from Merritt Secondary School, and this reward will help support her future goals in the medical field. So Katie will be attending TRU in their Bachelor of Science program and plans to transfer to BCIT for the radiology program and ultimately wants to specialize in sonography. So, and from what I recall, I've been in the health field for 30 years prior to retiring. This is a really hard to fill position in the entire healthcare field. So I really commend you for going into that kind of a field, and maybe she'll return back to Merritt. You know, who knows? So we're really proud of Katie's accomplishments, and we wish you all the best as you continue in your educational career. But I want you to come up here, and I want council to also come up here, and any one of staff, please use your phone to take a picture of this presentation.
Mom, no.
Thank you. Yeah, come on in. A little bit closer. We don't like it. So, we wish you all the best, and go in for Merritt. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
I'm going to be
Now this moves us into the public hearing. So this, I'll wait till some of the chairs get filled. This public hearing is convened to consider zoning amendment bylaw 2316-2021, which is at 3350 Boat Street. The purpose of this hearing is to allow all persons who believe that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw a reasonable opportunity to be heard. Written materials may also be submitted up to the close of the public hearing, and these are given equal weight to verbal presentation. We ask that everyone be respectful of other points of view. We want to foster an environment where everybody feels comfortable doing so. Although there's no time limit on presenting at public hearings, I do ask that if your position has already been taken up by an earlier speaker, please try to keep your comments to a minimum. This is not meant to stop anyone from presenting. I'm only asking that you be sensitive of the time frame of this meeting. The public hearing is not a time for debate with individual presenters. However, council does wish to hear your views, and where further clarity is required, council may ask questions of the speaker. After the close of the public hearing, council may not receive any more representations, written or verbal. Ms. Brick, Deputy Corporate Officer, can you explain how this hearing came about and confirm if the statutory advertising requirements were met?
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw 2316 received first and second readings at the May 21st, 2021 regular meeting of Council, and it was referred to a public hearing. Staff can confirm that the statutory advertisements, they were placed in the July 15th and July 22nd editions of the Merritt Herald, so that requirement has been met, Your Worship.
Thank you. Ms. Bradshaw, Community Planner, can you please provide an overview of these bylaws?
Thank you, Your Worship. As a background, the applicant is proposing to rezone the parcel at 3350 Boat Street from medium density residential R7 and residential modular home R4 to residential modular home. In comparison to the previous rezoning, the applicant's proposal would eliminate the proposed townhomes that would front Boat Street and replace them with modular homes that would back onto Boat. Staff understands from the applicant that it has been difficult to find a partner to develop the R7 portion of the property, which is in part what prompted this rezoning application. Staff supported the original proposal as it provided much-needed housing for residents, as well as considering the city's desire to transform Boat Street into a welcoming gateway to the community. Staff is supportive of development on this parcel, and the new proposal retains the needed housing for residents, though some of the streetscape and safety benefits associated with the original proposal would be foregone with this amendment. As mentioned, Council gave first and second readings to the current proposed bylaw on May 25th. As for the official community plan, an OCP amendment was completed previously, so the current land use designation of residential supports this proposed rezoning. And the housing needs report suggests that the city should encourage development of smaller multifamily accessible units close to transportation infrastructure. The current medium density residential zoning is more closely aligned with this recommendation. However, housing in the city is in short supply. So while the housing needs report does not explicitly support the proposed development, the development would provide residents with additional housing options. The extension of the Boat Street multi-use path is also planned as part of the Boat Street Phase 2 project, which would run along the length of the property. A road dedication along Boat Street may be required, and this would be negotiated at the subdivision stage. The active transportation plan also identifies Grimmett Street as a bike route, so connecting Grimmett Street to Springbank Avenue would enable this bike route to be implemented. And as I said earlier, Boat Street is one of the main gateways to the community. Staff from each department have been working to improve the streetscape, so that is welcoming to visitors. One of the important improvements has been to encourage developers to ensure that buildings front the street. However, staff acknowledge that when compared with the currently vacant parcel, a well-designed fence or wall with attractive landscaping would be an enhancement to the boat streetscape. Should Council pass this amendment, staff will work with the applicant to support an attractive streetscape. During the previous rezoning, staff highlighted the importance of safety, mentioning that walls do not make pedestrians feel safe, especially when walking at night. And typically when designing for safety, front doors should be visible from the street, windows in the home should have clear sight lines to people walking by, and the applicant's new proposal does not provide these safety features. Lastly, the subject property is in development permit area number 3 if the property is developed for multifamily, commercial, or industrial. So the current zone of medium density residential, R7, would therefore require a development permit. The proposed change to residential modular home, R4, would remove the requirement for a development permit, as modular homes are not multifamily. Development permits normally outline requirements for landscaping, lighting, signage, and other form and character requirements. So without the requirement to obtain a development permit, there is no guarantee that the above listed items would be provided. So staff intend to request these items at the subdivision stage. With that, I will pass it back to your worship. If council have any questions, staff would be pleased to address those as well. Thank you.
Is there a presentation from the applicant?
There. Your worship, yes, we have a presentation that's queued up.
Okay.
So in the next button. There we go. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Gary Malika, and I'm with True Consulting, here this evening on behalf of Span Holdings. Span Holdings LP, a consortium of 5 First Nations of the Nicola Valley, is seeking rezoning approval to allow for a 46-unit outdoor home community at 3350 Boat Street and 3155 Grimmett Street. In terms of background, it's the former site of the Grasslands Hotel, Days Inn, and ABC Family Restaurant. Subject lands have been vacant now for approximately 12 years. With respect to the OCP, it was amended in October 2020 to allow for residential development as well as parks and open space. 91% of the subject lands are zoned R4, which allows modular homes with a modular home park setting. 8% of the subject lands are zoned R7, which allows townhomes, apartments, and daycare centers. And approximately 1% of the subject lands are zoned P1, parks and cemetery, to facilitate a future city pathway. So, what has changed since October 13 of 2020? An expression of interest was put out in the fall of 2020 seeking development partners for both modular homes and townhomes. There has been a lack of developer interest in constructing and managing the 15-unit townhouse block, in part due to the 10-year lease requirements. There's been little interest from developers in building the modular homes interlaced with townhome units. That said, a developer has come forward and is willing to partner with SPIAM on the construction, marketing, and management of Grasslands Village on the premise that the subject lands be zoned entirely R4. This is consistent with other modular home communities the developer has been involved in. Rather than risk losing a potential development partner and having lands remain vacant for years to come, SPAM advanced the application seeking to rezone the remaining 8% of the subject lands to R4. Since October 2020, the conceptual plan has been revised substantially to reflect changes that have transpired over the past 9 months. Namely, Bowden Street widening, Merritt Street extension alignment, proposed traffic circle, additional open space made available as a result, and the reduction in the number of dwellings from 67 down to 46. Speaking of housing demand, in February 2021, a housing needs assessment was put forward to Council, and it established 5 recommendations. This development supports 3 of the 5 recommendations. First being promote and protect affordability in the market. The third being to address growth in population age 65 years and older. And the fourth being to manage growth. The proposed modular home community would be the first of its kind in Merritt, providing a denser and affordable housing product geared towards the 45-plus demographic. In the case of townhomes, City Council recently approved 2 rezoning applications that will result in 130 new townhouses, 32 of which are to be constructed just down the road on Forksdale Avenue. With manufactured homes, they can be constructed in a controlled environment and therefore can be built in less time than a traditional stick-built home.
SPAM commissioned a study in July of 2019 that looked at the feasibility of developing a modular home subdivision. The study recommended proceeding and projected an absorption rate of 20 to 30 units in year 1 and 10 to 15 units per year thereafter. Based on the current housing demand, it is anticipated that Grasslands Village will be fully built out by year 3. The next couple of sections are dealing with community concerns as well as staff concerns and how the revised plan and our proposal addresses those concerns. 63% of those surveyed in October of 2020 did not support townhouses fronting onto Bowden Street. The proposed concept has been revised as a result, in part, to focus on developing single-story modular dwellings, thus not impairing the viewscape of those living on Parker Drive. Residents along Burgess Ave expressed concern with privacy, having dwellings and a pathway being located along the escarpment. As such, the plan was revised to reduce the number of dwellings along the escarpment from 22 down to 17. Some concerns raised with respect to safety and families with children that may reside in the townhomes that front onto an interior road. The plan has been revised to provide for a more compatible mix of housing types, and the number of dwellings fronting onto Bowden Street was reduced from 17 down to 10. Some residents expressed that they would like to see development similar to Gallagher Lake near Oliver. If approved, SPIAM would be partnering with the same developer who designed and built Gallagher Lake Village. And finally, there's objections to the extension of Merritt Street through the development. SPIAM recognizes that a future collector road through the subject lands is set out in the OCP and has been working with city staff in the design of Merritt Street extension. The redesign no longer severs the development into 2 parcels and also takes into consideration the city's plans for a new traffic circle. Moving on to staff concerns. Bowden Street streetscape. Grasslands Village is the last infill project on Vote Street, and while this project alone won't improve the streetscape along the rest of Vote Street, SPAM would like to assure Council that, in whatever form it takes, the streetscape along Vote Street, as well as Grimmett Street, will present an attractive appearance. Does not meet the standard of modern urban design principles. While it is not clear what is or where in the OCP or zoning bylaw it speaks to modern urban design principles, it should be noted that SPAM has yet to submit a development permit application addressing design. Guidelines around building design, landscaping, parking, and signage are detailed in DPA 3, Highway Corridor Gateways of the OCP. SPAM welcomes the opportunity to discuss design guidelines and streetscape with planning staff during the development and subdivision process. And the plans provided to date are conceptual in nature and only provided so as to help Council determine if the proposed use is appropriate for this location. The applicant's new proposal does not provide those safety features, and walls do not make pedestrians feel safe. This section pertains mainly to what's referred to as crime prevention through environmental design, or CPTED. The 4 key principles of CPTED are natural surveillance, natural access control, territorial reinforcement, and maintenance and management. With respect to natural surveillance, good surveillance means that people can see what others are doing, thereby deterring would-be offenders. With respect to natural access control, physical and symbolic barriers can be used to attract, channel, or restrict movement of people, in turn, minimize opportunities for crime. In the case of territorial reinforcement, clear boundaries between public and private areas through the use of fences, art, signs, good maintenance, and landscaping are ways to express ownership. Identifying intruders is much easier in well-defined surroundings. And finally, maintenance and management. Clear spatial definitions such as the subdivision of spaces into public, semi-public, or private areas can reduce criminal behavior. Safety is a two-way street. By that I mean the responsibility lies with not only the developer, but also the city. The following potential areas of concern help illustrate this point. Future pathway. The future pathway being proposed by the city and the resulting dedication of land that'll come at subdivision presents a potential concern with pedestrian traffic in an area that doesn't have a lot of eyes on the street, if you will. That can be mitigated in a number of ways. In the case of the city-owned property, it can be mitigated by sight lines, it can be mitigated by street lights. Grimmett Street extension. It is anticipated that the Grimmett Street extension will be terminated at the end of this project, or on the southeastern limits of the project, till such time as it can be extended by the city when capital budget becomes available. As a result, this area could present itself as being a concern from a CPTED perspective because it dead ends. Another potential area of concern is where the internal pathway system of the community intersects with Vote Street. Again, that can be addressed through a combination of city initiatives as well as developer initiatives. Again, it comes back to sightlines, visibility, lighting, as some examples of how to properly identify that space and to accommodate it. And again, finally, the Vote Street interface. Again, same principles as some of the other areas, streetscape, screening, visibility, definition of private and public space can all help in deter any potential criminal activity. Now, I want to move on to site design elements. What we can share with you at this point, and while we haven't prepared their development permit application, in discussions with our development partner, we can speak to some of the design elements that the developer and SPAM would like to bring forward on this project. Namely, single-story manufactured dwellings. constructed on foundations as opposed to sitting on wheels or a frame that you might see in the case of a mobile home park. The inclusion of concrete driveways and sidewalks. And of course, because of the location and the concerns with regards to water, be it in Merritt or elsewhere throughout the province, all the lots will be xeriscaped. There is a communal amenity space proposed, as well as a community mailbox. Also, in the southern portion of the site, there will be a recreational vehicle storage underneath the power transmission lines. And attention paid to the integration of the site with the future multi-use pathway along Vote. Getting more specific and speaking to the building design elements, we are looking at floor plans that range in size from 1120 square feet to 1520 square feet. They're the two bedroom plus den, and 3-bedroom models. And they will come with front and or side verandas or porches. They will also include attached carports, hardy board exterior, and earth tone color palette, as well as water conservation fixtures and appliances. In terms of benefits to the city, an approval would facilitate the completion of Vote Street Phase 2 improvements in this immediate area, as well as the proposed traffic circle. Rezoning would lead to subdivision, which in turn would result in land being dedicated to the city as per the LGA. An approval would also facilitate the extension of Merritt Street through to Springbank Avenue. Increased tax revenue from a parcel of land that has been vacant for over 12 years. It would result in a residential development that is in keeping with the density and character of the immediate area. And the development is expected to be built out within 3 years, thereby helping address the city's immediate housing needs. And finally, an approval would result in additional land being dedicated for open space along Vote Street, thereby fulfilling the city's goal of improving the streetscape along a major active transportation route. So why develop a complete community? The proposed rezoning is in keeping with the OCP and the current zoning in the area. The proposed development helps address the city's housing shortage by providing smaller, multifamily, accessible units close to transportation infrastructure. The conceptual site plan illustrates how the development can address the various concerns raised by the area residents and city staff. SPAM and our development partner look forward to working with city staff during the development permit and subdivision process to ensure on-site design elements and safety are taken into consideration. And SPAM is excited to advance this project and bring much-needed housing to the city within the next 12 months. Thank you for your time and consideration. We have additional members of SPAM, as well as the development partner, present this evening to speak to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm just here right now at this point to answer any questions you may have regarding the proposal.
Are there any questions? Councillor Van Goot.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I guess the only question, firstly, I like the layout and I like the design of the homes. My question, if possible, can you get into what this lease ownership model is? Not quite clear about it. Thank you.
Through the Mayor. Essentially, because it is First Nations held land, while it is not on First Nations land, it is held by First Nations. In the case of the 5 First Nations involved with this project, their preference is and has always been to hold lands indefinitely. So in order for this to work, would be leasing it out to whatever party for a 49-year lease, or in some cases you see 99-year leases as well. So the manufactured setup in this case works very well, whereas if you're doing single family or townhouses, it gets a little trickier. So that's the setup when I speak to the lease tenure.
Any other questions? I have a couple of quick ones, and I wasn't sure. When we talk about visitor parking stalls, how many visitor parking stalls are we talking about? For 46, I think it is, units, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Your Worship, I don't recall what the requirements are for visitor parking. We've looked at it. I know the concept plan is conceptual. We recognize that based on the number of units, we'll have certain visitor requirements. We'll meet those on the site, and we're comfortable with that. I don't know if it's 6 or 5 off the top of my head, though.
Okay, and the same thing with the RV. Same thing with the RV parking stalls.
There is, with the RV, it's basically outside storage for those who reside within the development. So there is no requirement for parking of RV vehicles or boats or trailers, whatever may be the case. It's just sort of an additional amenity space, if you will, within the development.
The other question is, did you set aside 1% for parks? And I thought our bylaws said 5.
So in the presentation, I didn't make reference to any percentage with regards to open space. We have been in discussions with planning staff, and there is a request for 5% amenity space that's set out in the R4 zone. So that will be addressed internally. And essentially, if you look at that area within the plan that shows you where the community mailbox is, there's an open space area there that should contribute to the 5%. And then there's additional lands that'll be on the opposite end of Merritt that, as a result of the realignment of the traffic circle, will be dedicated or handed over to the city as open space as well.
So
I should
the
say
planning, that's been addressed, or in the process of being addressed anyways.
if I may just add light, we haven't submitted a development permit, which until Friday we assumed we were going to be required to submit one, but we will be definitely doing a subdivision application. We'll deal with it at that point. The discussions with regards to open space dedication have been preliminary with Mr. MacArthur in the months preceding this hearing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Luck.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Just going back to the leasehold system, and you know, Chilliwack, Osoyoos, this is the first one for our community's leasehold agreements. But if I remember correctly, in Chilliwack, they're homes that are domiciled privately on native leased land and everything, but they're not all modular homes. They're stick built as well, correct? If I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong.
So through the mayor, yeah, there are lease arrangements throughout BC with regards to where individuals, I mean, I come from Kamloops, so we have a number of areas in Kamloops First Nations where land is owned outright on the terms of a lease. So Sun Rivers, for example, is a beautiful residential subdivision with varying types of density. And in all that situation, it's all leasehold, correct.
So when we went to the design to put the townhouses along the Road Street, why did we not automatically jump to the conclusion that there were 2 stories? Wouldn't you want to be put, this is a senior, but for seniors, right? Why would we jump to the conclusion that they were going to be 2 stories? Wouldn't you want to be looking like the McCallum Garden model down below where there's just single stories if we were going to stay with the condos? And I think I mentioned that we need to be flexible here. Why would we have not gone to just single story condos and there are townhouses or even duplexes? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jan, if I think we went to duplex, we probably wouldn't need to have a development permit for that, would we, or would we? Well, I got a couple of questions in there, sorry.
So through the mayor, I don't see if I can tackle at least 2 of them if I can. I don't know about the other 4 or 5.
Yeah, there's a couple there, yeah.
So at the time when we brought the application forward, we had included the townhouse component in discussion with the city. That discussion, we hadn't specified how many stories the townhouse was. Some of the residents had recognized that it could be upwards of, I think it was 4 stories, I believe, under the R7 zoning. We did as best we could reassure them that it would be 2, 3 at best, but it wouldn't be anything in excess of that, and 2 would be a typical for a townhouse setup. But we didn't make a commitment to what story that would be. We didn't imagine it being 1 story. I mean, again, that mix of townhouses, which we anticipated 2 or 3 story, which would be typical of townhouses, right next to a modular home community, seemed to be an interesting contrast. You're inviting families versus sort of 45 plus, if I can call it that. They're very different dynamics or demographics. So we would hope that this setup here works better, and it has proven itself to work better elsewhere, because I'm still not aware of any situation that you find yourself in with a modular home community that intermixes other types of density, housing types or housing densities.
Okay, good, thank you.
And I think I've got one of those 6 or 7 questions.
You did.
Sorry.
They're kind of all over the place, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I clarify a question that you had, or you had said that it was for seniors?
Yeah.
This isn't restricted to seniors, from my understanding, is it?
So, Your Worship, in this case, We have a couple more speakers that are going to come in after me. One will be the developer who is responsible for Gallagher Lake Village. It'll be their vision working with SPIAM and how this ultimately plays out. My understanding is yes, you don't control who can reside in there. It does come down to marketing the type of housing product. We'll encourage certain types of individuals. So you'll notice in the housing needs study it speaks to 65 plus. In other areas you'll hear communities aimed at 45 or 55 plus. I went after 45 because I'm bringing the bar down a little bit lower. But again, that's the market that typically isn't going to come with families per se. And that amenity space and that community is more geared towards those who are maybe have a place here, maybe have a place in Yuma, Arizona perhaps, so they go back and forth and everything's maintained for them in their absence.
Thank you. Councillor Bengu.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may ask, when did the First Nations group take ownership of this land, and was it privately owned before? Thank you.
So through the mayor, I'll leave that to the chair of SPIAM. She may be able to give a bit more history on it, but I believe we've owned it, SPIAM's owned it for in excess of 15, if not longer, but I'll leave that question for Susan Roline when she comes up to speak.
Thank you. And seeing no others.
Thank you.
Now, did I hear that there were other speakers from SPIAM? Susan, you are speaking on behalf of SPIAM. Can I have you come to the mic first, please?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Small one.
No. There. Now you're on.
Are we good? Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for holding this public hearing tonight. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Susan Roline. I am the chair of SPAM Holdings LP. SPAM Holdings represents our 5 First Nations bands, as Gary has previously explained. The land has now sat idle since July 23rd, 2007. So we're, 14 years that it's been kind of a blight on our community. Nothing but weeds growing there right now. A fire leveled that hotel that sat there. That was the second hotel fire on that piece of property. Councillor Bengu asked the question, how long had SPIAM Holdings owned that property? I believe it goes back to probably the mid-80s is when they took possession of that land and operated the hotel that was there. So SPIAM Holdings, the partners, which are all 5 bands within our valley, their philosophy is to hold land. They do not wish to sell land, and that's the challenge we came up against with this development, particularly trying to find a developer to do both the modular home and a townhouse subdivision, is that townhouses to do just one little strip like that, it's not feasible. Most developers come in and do a series of 5 or 6 buildings to make it feasible. So that was one of our biggest challenges. After the hotel fire in 2007, in approximately 2008, 2009, SPAM commissioned a study to see what the best use of that land was, if it was rebuilding another hotel on it, or should they be looking at another use. And so the study came back that the best use determined at that time, and we still feel that it's current use in light of where our hotel development is going, is to keep it for residential. There's approximately 22 acres of land there, and so again, looking at what the best type of residential was for that land and what Merritt's needs were, we combined the two. We weren't just looking at our needs. And so that's when the concept of the modular home developments, and we've gone around and looked at some of the more well-known, I guess, modular home developments, and there's quite a few around now, in the Okanagan especially. And then went out for proposals to see if we could find an interested developer, which we have found. So again, back to the shareholders, because that's who I represent. They want to lease the land and they don't want to sell it because leasing the land gives a longer economic benefit for them. It goes into can't even say that word, perpetuity, where they'll be receiving annual income to help with their other ventures. And so we either will be looking at 49 to 99-year leases on this property. So people are confident that they're not going to be booted off within 25 years. They'll be there for the long term. So again, SPAM's goal is to maximize the economic benefits while providing the community with an affordable housing option, and that's our goal, is to keep them affordable. They're not going to be in the $700,000 range or $500,000 range. They'll be more manageable for people. And I believe now it will be the first of its kind in our community. We haven't got any other developments in place like this or on the near horizon. So I think it'll be a good addition to our community and give some more benefits from that land back to not only the people that are going to live there, but also the city and in tax benefits and having more people. Good. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any questions?
Any other questions for Ms. Rowley? Councillor Richard.
In terms of the lease, is it still up in the air whether you're deciding between a 49 and a 99-year lease? And I'm only worried about, my concern is for people when they're purchasing and financing and all the issues that come with it, financing, insurance, all these things for people.
And again, most people mortgage for 25 years, so you want to have something that goes beyond that, and that's why we're considering the 49-year lease. So it'll be a decision of the shareholders when that time comes, when we start developing the leases, as to how long they'll go with.
Okay. And would it also be more of like a bare land with operated almost like a strata with rules? And is that the idea right now? Yeah,
it'll be a typical community. So there will be rules of what you can have on the property, the landscaping, things like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thank you.
What are the mortgage requirements on like lease land like that? Are they the same as like buying freehold or
freehold land?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very similar. So you've got a guaranteed lease in place, unless the owner did something way out of whack. It would be the only reason that they would be asked to break that lease, but that lease is pretty much solid, right? We'd have lawyers draw them all up and everything like that.
So it'll be fairly easy for
yes
to get a mortgage on something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'm hoping I'm spelling this right, or pronouncing it right. Swaran Chehal.
Hello, Merritt Council. My name is Swarjit Chahal, and I live in Oliver. And we developed the Gallagher Lake Home Park, 8300 Gallagher Lake Frontage Road in Oliver. And we started in 2011, and we just finished the last house we sold in 2020. And it was 127 modular homes, and we did that, and so now we are hoping to do this one.
Any questions for Mr. Chehal? Chehal?
Yeah.
Councillor Richard, did you have a question?
No, I think I just forgot to turn it off.
Councillor Christopherson.
I'm just really curious what the price range is.
Price range will be, it's very difficult right now. You were seeing it last, when I bought for this development, when we priced out the homes in January this year, from January to June, the lumber prices and the trade prices went right now is about 35% up than what we were seeing. And but it is prices are, some of the prices are coming down, and but the thing is, you see in the market, I mean, when these guys put their prices up, they don't come always that much down. I mean, they might have a little things. I mean, we are hoping we can do this within a 400 and 450 range. Like this is our goal is. But soon, but we need to be figured out all the sewer and water and everything. We'll figure it out after this with all that, and a final pricing from the house. Most likely we come from Moduline in Penticton, and we'll price them out soon as we have the numbers, and we need to give them a time frame too, because they only tell you these prices are only good for 30 days, and then whatever changes comes in and whatever the role plays.
Well, it was a bit of a loaded question, I know, but I'm also wondering what the lease arrangements figure is about.
About lease arrangement will be figured out. About the goal is right now. My thinking with all the cost and everything will be about $500 a month. For that will include the sewer, water, road cleaning, and snow removals and all that, and probably maybe the garbage pickup and all those. We'll arrange with you guys, with the city and all that, and then probably homeowner will pay for that. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Councillor Bangu.
Thank you, Mayor. A point, if I may ask, are you suggesting the development will remove the snow from its own streets, and that's something that the city will not have to do? You mentioned that in the $500 snow removal.
It's not that. No, that will be okay. We can arrange with the city too, with all that, and the city can do that. No problem. Snow removal.
No, I mean, are you? If you want to do it, that's great.
No. If we arrange with the city, it will be. We'll ask you guys what will be the cost involved with that, and then it could be a built-in thing.
Okay. So
if city really want to do that, like really want to have that done with the city, we have no problem with that.
I think what he's saying is, depending on what we want in the lease, will determine what.
Yes, that will be. We'll put those costs in. I mean, that be.
I understand. It just sounded as if you said that within the $500 that.
I mean, yes, that's what we include in Oliver. Yeah, like in Oliver we are in RUS, and here we are in the city of Merritt. So it's two different things, So like up there we are dealing with the RUS, and they don't want to do the snow removal in the private subdivision. So that's why we have to raise that our own. And
so we're unsure at the moment what this $500 includes and doesn't include.
That was an estimate.
That's sewer and water, 100% will be included in that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And the land taxes, because this land is not going to be subdivided. The house taxes they will pay, and because the total land has to be paid taxes too, because it's not actually subdivided lots. It's a one property, and somebody has to pay for on the land taxes. So that will be included in the pad rental. So the owner who's buying the house, they know, and they will pay their own house and pay the rental on the top, and rent will go up. Rent can go up once a year, and it will be with the laws, with the provincial laws, like whatever provincial government say you can raise 1%, you can raise 1.5%. Like this year, they said no, it's no raise, so we can't do it. Even our costs gone up with the sewer and water, but we can't really raise the rent because it's a provincial said they said no, it's no raise for this year. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Fair.
Thank you. I believe I noticed in the presentation that it's projecting a 1-year build out, a 12-month. That's a pretty exciting prospect, I think.
That will be 3-year build out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We are hoping it will be about 3. We can do it in a 3 year. It depends on the difficulty is right now the trades are very, it's very hard.
Yeah,
and we have it, like we have the company who does our setups, and how we do it is we don't just hire the one guy to do the foundation, and next guy comes in and land the house, and then next guy comes in build the carport, and then next guy comes in do the landscaping. How we do it is we contract the whole thing to the one person. His responsibility from breaking ground to finish the house. That's his job, and he will give us a price for that. And all the time the problem comes is this: then you have different people working on different things, and then they complain on each other and all that. And this way, his responsibility is to deliver us a right product, the product the way we want, and is best for the customer.
Okay, 3 years. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just remind council that this is a rezoning application, so we need to have our questions try to stick to the rezoning. Okay. Looks like we are finished. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, I've got on the list Jerry Malenka.
I'm already.
Oh.
Thank you.
Sorry. Kathy Norris.
Thank you for your time, Your Worship, staff, and councillors. We support the official zoning map and Schedule A for the proposed new bylaws. We live on Parker Drive, 2238 Parker Drive. Our backyard overlooks the old grasslands area, or whatever you want to call it. We feel very comfortable and have from the beginning that a quality modular home park village on this property would be the best fit for our existing communities and for new people coming to Merritt. We have been in touch, my husband and I, with the city Merritt staff several times and have expressed our opinions and concerns. We subsequently have developed an open conversation with the staff at SPAM and True Consulting, because I was always taught if you have issues or concerns, you should go to the source. So this was no slight to anybody, not meant to insult anybody in any way. Like a good neighbor, we have voiced some concerns, suggestions, and positive ways to encourage the development. We have had a very positive interaction, discussing and finding many benefits to the people of Merritt together. Some of the topics probably Jerry covered, but I wasn't privy to what he was saying, and so sorry. We have the possibility to benefit from a traffic circle in our community. Our bedroom overlooks both. We have an incredible amount of traffic that goes down that road. Even though we shouldn't have 3- and 4-wheel, 4-axle units going down that road. Starting usually at 3 o'clock in the morning, we have trucks, trailers, motorhomes going down road with their air brakes on, where that small incline is. A traffic circle would definitely slow down traffic. And yes, some people have commented, a lot of us didn't grow up with traffic circles, but I think we're quite capable of learning. And when you pay attention to new items, you spend a little bit more time in awareness and safety. Right now, safety is a concern for walkers going down road there. We have speeding vehicles, we have ambulances, we have fire trucks. So safety is a concern for everyone. But I think, again, the traffic circle is going to help with some of the safety issues. We can also benefit by getting the opportunity of a new modular home park village, which there is none that currently exist in Merritt. My husband and I own a modular home in Chetwynd, which is in northern BC, and love it. We had, that's the squarest house we ever had, the least expensive house that we ever had to heat, and insurance was no problem. My background is insurance, and believe me, there is no difficulty getting insurance on owner-occupied modular homes, or financing as far as that goes. Another opportunity for us is that we could have affordable homes. And again, affordable is sort of one of those intangible things. What's affordable to me may not be affordable to other people, but it's an opportunity for a different market. And the more mature people, 45 and over, seem to gravitate more to a village environment. There's safety in numbers. Another benefit could be more population to Merritt. As we have been informed by city staff on several occasions, and I'm not pointing fingers, that certain improvements and opportunities come to our community when our population grows. So this is another opportunity for more population perhaps to come to Merritt, so we get better services at our hospitals, etc. We have visited several modular home park villages that the developer has completed, and we have been very impressed with the developer's view on landscaping with arid plants. This is consistent with improving less usage of water in Merritt, which is a major concern to everybody here. The developers also have been able to visualize and have the ability to work with city staff on issues for the need of the Merritt Street being extended towards Springbank Avenue. That would be a great benefit to Merritt. In closing, we look forward to hopefully working with our new neighbors. We may not always agree, but that is the human condition. But what a benefit to us to have developers who welcome and want our opinions on how to bring Merrittonians new exciting opportunities. We all know development of Merritt must and will happen. Making of good neighbors is freedom to ask questions and perhaps see other views. Let's not cut off our nose to spite our face, as my parents would have told me. Sometimes compromise helps us move forward. Again, we stand in favor of a quality modular home park village. Please approve the zoning bylaw requested. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for Mrs. Rose?
Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Fleming.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council and staff for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about the development on 3350 Boat Street. My name is Doug Fleming. I reside at 2201 Parker Drive. I begin by stating that I am very much in favor of a quality manufactured home development on the site. I believe that the developer has presented a very viable project for the property and an affordable housing solution for the city of Merritt. Please take a moment to look beyond your current visions for the city and see quality developments for what they are and what potential they can offer your city. You can remain vigilant by ensuring that your city planning department holds the developer to a high standard in building design and quality, and that the project reflects the best of your city interests and the best interests of the projects that they are saying that they will build similar to. You have a good project developer, a good project owner, and a good project consultant. Use these assets to your city's advantage. The development group has proposed a dynamic opportunity for the city to expand its infrastructure. While there are a few details yet to be worked out, you have a very capable planning department. The developers have gone out of their way to make a project that will make Merritt proud. Providing proper zoning for this property will contribute to a bountiful development for your community, while refusing the rezoning will likely lead to a stall on the property and a weed-infested eyesore that you've been accustomed to for the last 14 or 15 years. Please move forward with this development, but hold the developers' feet to the fires, which they appear they're willing to build a quality development, and your development permit guidelines can ensure that that is in fact done. This property has the potential to return over $1 million to the city in taxes in 10 short years with the development. As it currently sits, you would collect about $30,000. So this is an economic incentive for the city as well. In addition, I understand that the developer is prepared to contribute towards the roundabout through land, and there may be some financial contribution there. They have to build access road into their own property. Whether this property does develop or not, it's really in your hands. Obviously tonight with this rezoning, if you approve it and work with the developer, it will likely go forward. If you don't, what you have today is probably what you have for a number of years. So I encourage you to support the rezoning application. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I do note that there are 20 persons allowed in the council chambers, and there are only 18 currently, and there are some people standing outside. I will leave now and give up my seat, but there's still a few more if you would allow those, that number 20
Yeah, we'll allow everyone here to speak who wants to speak. Thank you. Don Gosso is next.
Thank you. Mayor, council, staff, I think I know most everyone in here, and I have to be very careful tonight because I wear a couple hats. So I'm going to speak firstly as the general manager of the Lower Nicola Indian Band Development Corporation. Obviously, we're very committed to seeing First Nation economic development in the valley, and this is kind of a unique one. And I have to be careful because sometimes I say things that aren't politically correct, but to see 5 First Nation groups come together to collaborate on one project is outstanding for a lot of different reasons. And so I'm really optimistic about the outcome of this, and I sincerely hope it goes through. With regards to the SPIAM group, I know all the directors on there, and they're really first-class people. And I think that's displayed here tonight when you see they're engaged with True Consulting, with Mr. Jahal, who has a proven track record in the South Okanagan. And I think it's going to be a great initiative for the city of Merritt. Now, my other hat is as a realtor and managing broker of Century 21. And just throw out a caveat here, I would never engage in selling any of these properties due to perceived or actual conflict of interest. It would never happen. So. But I've heard it mentioned 3 or 4 times tonight, the need for housing in Merritt. And I don't think I need to say it again, but it's imminent and it's a reality. And I think this will, it's a good stepping stone in the right direction. And they've gone over all the, the benefits to the city with the additional tax revenues. And again, it'll be a professionally built and managed complex. And I really liked, I'm sorry, I didn't get his name, but what he said, that the city needs to hold the developers' feet to the fire, and we heard you say what you're going to do, now do it. And yeah, so anyway, I'm fully in support this, and also as a resident of Merritt for the past 35 years, I think it's a good thing. I don't think no questions or anything.
Doesn't look like there is any.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Now the floor is still open for anyone else who didn't write their name on this speaker's list. If anyone is here and wishes to speak to this issue? Come up, give your name and address.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Council, for your time. My name is Ken Sword. I live on Burgess Avenue with my wife, and we're living below this development. And can we go back to the previous slide that you had on that, please? I have one question more based towards Council, if you will.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what I had up last. Was it the overall picture of the development? Is that what we're looking for? Give me 2 seconds here. Right there, I think.
Sure, that's a good one. What some of the concerns are, one of the concerns for the people on Burgess is your quote-unquote future pathway on city land to the south of the development. And I understand there'll be a fence at the back of the properties, but the pathway to the south of that fence will be along the edge of the escarpment going down to the street below. And we have people walking there already, which is fine, and we don't have any objection to that. But it would be nice to get a commitment from the city to have a chain link fence or something built along the ridge line of that escarpment to prevent people from coming down into the people's property and stealing stuff. We've had that happen in the past. Also, it's a dry country, obviously, so people will create pathways. Erosion ensues, and we just as soon have that isolated. And it does provide. The only negative thing I can see about this is the deer are going to suffer. You know, we sit and watch our deer every night, but it's the only greenway or a wildlife corridor from east to west in the city. So you're restricting that, but if that fence was put there, that would at least maintain that escarpment, and you wouldn't have the erosion factor from kids tobogganing in the winter and so on. And with the increased tax revenue that you're going to be getting and stuff, I would hope that a few funds could be dedicated to put up a fence there, and I would request that from Council. Otherwise, that's it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that. If you have any questions.
Doesn't look like there's any questions from Council.
No comments on that?
No. Sounds good.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. Well, it's a non-committal answer, I guess, but...
well, until we actually
right.
decide as a group.
We'll be looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anyone else in here or out in the, is it called the lobby? Nobody there. So I'll ask second time, is there anyone here that wishes to speak to this issue? I'm asking for the third and last time. If there's anyone here wishing to speak, please step forward now. Okay. Seeing no further speakers, I ask Council to decide if we're to return this bylaw to a council meeting for further consideration or refer to adjourn this hearing to a later date to hear additional public submissions. So I need a mover and a seconder that council amendment bylaw number 2316-2021 be returned to council for further consideration. Okay, that was Luck and Etchart. I need another resolution that this public hearing be closed and that council reconvene to the special meeting of council. White and Etchart. And did I actually call for a vote on the first one? No. Okay, so I didn't think so. Can we go back up to that first motion, the council amend bylaw 2316, and actually vote on it? All in favor? Opposed? So that is carried. The council, let this bylaw be returned to council for further consideration.
Thanks.
Yes.
Verification.
You were the only one I didn't see that voted on that. Okay.
Bring it back to regular council.
Thank you. Sorry. And now we look at the public hearing to be closed to the council to reconvene to the special council, to special meeting of council. And we already had mover and seconder. We just need to vote on it. All in favor? Councilor Baker?
Yes, me too.
You voted in favor?
Yeah, I did.
Thank you. So that's, we're now back to the public hearing. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion. Back to special council meeting. Details. Now, we move on to, there is no unfinished business. So we move to 8.1 bylaws, bylaw 2318. This is the waterworks bylaw amendment. We're looking for an adoption that waterworks amendment bylaw number 2318, 2021 be adopted. Seconders, so Luck and Christopherson. Anyone want to speak to this? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. 8.2 bylaw 2313, earthworks bylaw. We're looking for an adoption that earthworks bylaw 2313, 2021 be adopted. Second. Enter Luck. And anyone want to speak to this? All in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. 8.3 is bylaw 2319, land use amendment and development approval procedures bylaw amendment. That it be bylaw 2319, 2021, that it be adopted. Mover? HR Christopherson. And anyone want to speak to this one? All in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. Zoning amendment bylaw 2316, 2021, 3350 Vote Street. We're looking at third reading. The council give third reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 2316, 2021. I need a mover. Edgard, a seconder. Christopherson. Anyone want to speak to this? I, for one, really appreciate the fact that the community that was opposed to the original proposal has actually done a complete turnaround. And so I commend those of you who are working on this project, because it seems you've done your job well to work things into their favor. Councillor White. Oh, sorry.
Yes, I agree with the mayor on the cooperation on this project. The only thing that I would like to see, and I don't know if this is the time, but is the last speaker, what he requested about the chain link fence, if that can happen.
I don't know that we can answer that right here. Councillor Edgard?
I'm happy to see that this project is going ahead, because the grasslands have been there as a landmark for years, and to see it revived again as a vibrant community, and with the roundabout there addressing traffic and whatnot, it seems to be the solution to a lot of concerns: traffic, housing. It will be aesthetically pleasing. The homes will be built in a manufactured setting, quality construction. It can accommodate a lot of people's housing needs, 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units. Maybe some people are looking for a home without stairs and not having to mow the lawn anymore. It really gives people more housing options that might not be. Maybe people don't want to go from the full home to the apartment, but they want the one-level home. So it'll be a nice community based on what we've seen, and it will be well planned, and hopefully it has a privacy for the residents on Burgess as well. Thank you.
Councillor Bangu.
Thank you, Mayor. Well put, Adam. That almost swayed my decision to vote for this. I like the layout, I like the design, and I like how the developer and the public work well together. I'm just not comfortable with the lease ownership model, and for that reason, I can't move forward with this. But outside of that, I think it's wonderful how the developer and the public worked together to present something to us. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Perfect. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to speak to the question that Councillor White had asked. As it stands right now, the path isn't identified in one of our capital plans, and it's not a specifically set out route. What I can say is if and when it were set out in a capital plan, first and foremost, we would need to consider slope stability there and make sure that that's a feasible kind of path. There's sufficient room to be able to do that. So I don't want to create any expectations that this is a foregone conclusion or exactly what it would look like, but as that project gets designed, those slope stability, as well as the concern that the residents had raised, would absolutely be incorporated. But that would be a separate project that wouldn't be directly associated with this development. And so, again, I know that the intricacies of the development is often so tempting to dive right into them. But recognizing that this year is really just looking at whether that front portion is R7 to R4, and I can tell you unequivocally the staff is supportive of development on this parcel, and so I think that if this is the zoning that's required in order to make it there, it's not even close that it beats the alternative 10,000 times over, and we would be thrilled to have the opportunity to work with the developers who have been in the community, and there's other projects that they're associated with, and so we are looking forward to a good relationship, and as has been raised by the developer and many other members of the public as well, when it comes to road and active transportation and other things, there's lots of elements that we would have occasion to work with the developer on this. So did want to make it clear that the path isn't necessarily part of this development though, and it would be brought forward as a separate capital project. Probably lower on the priority list than some of the other items that you have right now, so wouldn't expect anything to happen right imminently.
Thank you. Councillor Christopherson.
I just wanted to reiterate that I'm really pleased how the city and the developer have listened to the concerns of the citizens, and they've made changes to reflect those concerns, and I think it's a job well done all around. I look forward to seeing the final product. Thank you.
Councillor Hitcher.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add that I'm pleased to see that the developer is really taking into consideration the concerns of the citizens and really seems to want to make this a project that's pleasing to everyone. And I'm looking forward to seeing it go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So seeing no more comments, I'd like to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the council adopt the zoning amendment bylaw 2316-2021. A mover, a seconder, so Luck and Hitcher. And same thing, any concerns, any comments? This is your last go at it. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Wow, we've got ourselves a zoning change. Thank you. Thank you. And we move to.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
We move to 9.1, Economic Development Advisory Committee, Washroom Working Group recommendation, and Councillor Luck, you're going to speak to this issue.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'll speak to this issue. This is some great things happening in the city with our Economic Development Committee. First of all, I'd like to extend a thank you for all the volunteers on our committee. We've got a full committee there, and we're already working to make some strides in the economic development field in downtown. We've met 5 times, 4 times, 5 times? Somewhere in that area already, pulling some ideas together. One of the things that came up early, the washrooms come up, Spirit Square comes up, the pedestrian wall possibility comes up. A number of things in the city are key items. So we've been able to put together 3 work groups in the Economic Development Committee. We put together a washroom committee, we put together a committee that's looking, or sorry, I'm supposed to use the word work group, is that right, Linda? So work group, so we got a work group that's looking at the washrooms around the community. We got a work group that's looking at the possibility of a pedestrian mall in Colchana. We got a group working, looking at Spirit Square, what enhancements we can make there and really bring some vibrancy to these communities. And so I'm really thankful that this group of individuals are working together. And from this, we've had 2 major reports come back so far. One of them is from the bathroom committee, and one from the Spirit Square committee with some recommendations for some changes and things we can do. So the first one we're going to look at tonight is this one here. Is for the washroom committee. We've made some specific recommendation. You can see the presentation that the washroom committee work group made to the Economic Development Committee. There was some really good stuff there. Everything from us needing an app recognition for some of the businesses in the community that provide washrooms already in the community. What type of washroom, where should they go, and those kind of things. So I was really excited about some of the work that committee done and the Spirit Square one. But I think I'll let Councillor Christopherson talk about the Spirit Square one because that's his work group. So we'll do that. Or sorry, the mayor will. Councillor Christopherson speaks to that piece. But as we look at the washroom one, we're making some specific recommendation, not only for some washrooms in the community, but possibly where they should go. But some things as we come in, it's very dysfunctional when you go out there at washrooms. We don't have one open 365 and that, so we looked at some of those kinds. We also looked at wayfinding, trying to find bathrooms, all those kind of things. So we've made some very specific recommendations here as well. And I'll just go through them quickly. I think one of the things is wayfinding and signage. We have a problem with signage in the community. So what we'd like to do is standardize the signage for the washrooms. We have city colors. We'd like to see them on our bathrooms and proper signage in those bathrooms. Our committee is also the work group is recommending 5 new bathrooms around the community. 2 at Spirit Square, the Bailey House bathroom, because there's a challenge over the Bailey House bathroom. I think it's used as a storage room more than anything, so that'd be good. And then the Clay Banks, maybe the Clay Banks area. I know the mayor's looking at maybe bringing that more into a park situation, so this might help down there. And then one of the other recommendations is that we work with Spime Holdings because we know what a challenge 286 is right now with the washing facility. So we're looking at making recommendation there and then updating all the tourist maps and social media, including an app. I don't know how many people, you can get a washroom map, so it'd be really good if we could be part of that washroom map. So when you go in, I'm in Merritt, I gotta go to the bathroom, boom, it tells you where to go. So those are the some of the major recommendations that came out of that work group. So I'm really excited about moving this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else want to?
Did you want me to move the motion, Mayor, or do you want to talk about it first? I'll move it when it's time, if you like.
We technically should have the motion first before we do anything on this.
I'll move the motion that council support the following recommendations. Update the existing facilities and provide wayfinding. What? Sorry.
Yeah, we know what it is.
Okay.
What I wanted to do is talk about separating them.
Oh, okay.
There's one here that I don't even think Spime is the one to talk to at exit 286. I think it's the Ministry of Highways. So I'm not ready to just get the whole thing in one lump.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can move the first section.
Okay, so that council support the following recommendations. Update the existing facilities and provide wayfinding signage for washrooms. Install new washrooms at Spirit Square, 2 toilets there. Bailey House, 1 washroom there. And Clay Banks RV Park, 2 toilets there. And I'll leave it at that one.
Sure.
That sound good, Mayor?
Sure. And you seconded, Councillor White? Okay. Anyone want to speak to this? Councillor Etchart.
I thought that we had defeated this because we didn't have the grant for the $340,000 for the other one. So if that's the case, where are we going to get the money for the 2 lower cost washrooms at this point, even if it is the $200,000? Because I actually did read this report, but where's that coming from right now?
Mr. Smith, you want to talk to that, please?
More than you know.
Can you let me have
Oh,
the chair,
sorry.
please? Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that this is purely staff opinion on this one, so council can take this wherever you would like. But the committee did a really good job fleshing out some theoretical options for what this...
Very good.
There's literally nothing that you could say. Yeah. We're literally talking about a bathroom task force here, let's be honest. I'm doomed with anything I say here. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm part of the bathroom task force. So they did a great job flushing out some potential options that could be considered on this. But I recognize that there's still some information, some costing, some things that would need to happen. And so instead of having it be where council is supporting the installation of new washrooms, I think it may be easier if the recommendation were to have staff bring back a report regarding the installation of new washrooms, updating. I would feel more comfortable with that. That way we know and can get more specific direction from council once you've seen costing. And I think that we could probably do that even with, bring some information that this says Spine Holdings, but again, we could bring back who the parties at it. And so if this were to have council bring back, or to direct staff to bring back a report regarding these items, that might reduce the level of discomfort on taking them all at once, and we could just bring a report that is going to cost that out. I would be more comfortable with that as staff. Otherwise, I think with the direction that's there, we're getting direction to do it before you have costs, and that's or specific grants or anything like that. It's just a bit more of an uncomfortable situation. So
yeah, that's exactly where I was trying to go, but couldn't think fast enough to get there. So yeah, there is a motion on the floor, and
so. Do you want me to pull that motion off the floor?
That would help.
And then we could reword that slightly? Yeah, I totally support that.
So what we're looking for is for staff to bring back a report to us to address the recommendations in this previous motion.
So I'll make that motion, if that's right there.
Okay. For information and costing. And White. Seconds. Anyone want to speak to this?
I just have one quick question. For the minutes, are you clear on what happened on that one? Yeah. Okay, sounds excellent.
So there was a motion that was moved and seconded, that was withdrawn by the mover and the seconder, and now we've had a different version that's been placed on the table.
Been flushed.
Yep. It's been flushed. That's right, yeah.
We had movement on that.
Oh, good grief. Okay.
Stop!
We are looking at trying to address these issues in a way that works for the city. So I personally I like the actual building itself. I think we can do better on what kind of whatever that. I don't want an outhouse there. I want a decent looking washroom. So these ones were the cheapest they could go, and I think we may not have to look at the cheapest. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, and I think this is the beauty of it. We've got some direction, some good guidance, and maybe this ends up being where council wants to spend a bit more on a unit at Spirit Square to make sure that this is going to fit with the ambiance and the goals for the area, but maybe this is a model that you're more comfortable with in other areas. And so we will, I promise, we will review that, try to cost this out, get some specific information. And there are some of these that can probably come sooner rather than later, but in terms of the specifics of the washrooms itself, I believe the intent of the committee was to have these ready for the upcoming capital project period. So realistically, so council knows the timeline, we'll be looking and costing and trying to have this ready for the 2022 capital budget. That'll be when we present out what the options available to council are, so that you can provide some direction. So.
Perfect. So, have we voted on this yet? No. Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to this before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. Thank you. And the next one is 9.2, the Economic Development Advisory Committee, again, and this time it's the working group that Councillor Christopherson is going to speak to.
Good, thank you. I think I would like to take a similar approach with these ones as we did in the last motion. Basically, the idea that the working group has been doing is trying to find ways. Spirit Square is a nicely designed property in downtown Merritt, but it's underutilized. And so we've been looking at ways to perhaps bring more usage of it, but also to tie it more into the business center on Kolshena. So we've suggested that council direct staff to investigate opportunities to acquire land on Kolshena Avenue for the purpose of activities on the main street that can enhance the businesses that are there. And I'll leave it at that. Number two, that council direct staff to investigate options for developing the back alley that would join Spirit Square back into the commercial center of town, to have something that will generate foot traffic in the downtown core. Number three, that council direct staff to, now this says implement, I would like to change that word to examine traffic flow changes to make the downtown core more accessible for walking, and that fits in with our OCP of walkability. Number four, that council direct staff to, and again, I would like, instead of create shade, examine options for creating shade in Spirit Square and access to washrooms. As it stands right now, although the square is quite attractive, it's not conducive to programs at all. If you've been down to Spirit Square during the hot sunshine or even in the evening hours, you bake. It's not conducive to any kind of a seating arrangement at all for people. And the other thing that it's not suitable for is the traffic noise interferes with any type of concert that is down in that area, particularly during the summer months. The only one I know when it's quiet is during Country Christmas with the community sing-along. There's not much traffic flow around there at that time, but almost any other time of the year, the traffic flow really impedes any kind of an activity. So if we want to make Spirit Square a more vital part of the downtown revitalization project, we have to find ways to find some shade and to mitigate the traffic noise. And then the final thing, one of the projects that was left undone in Spirit Square when they originally did it was I think it's about $5,000 that the city already put towards creation of a coyote statue that was supposed to be part of the decor down there, and something that might invite tourists to have their pictures taken with. That was never completed, and so I think some of the money has been spent. I'm not sure that the city would have to look into that. And one of the committee members that had a great deal to do with that, Ron Sanders, is negotiating with the artist that was supposed to do that to find out any other things that the city needs to know about it. So with those two amendments in there to examine things, I would like to move this.
Are you looking at individual or all of them? I just have a little bit of difficulty with the completion of that coyote statute. If you can.
If you prefer to go individually, or the first four and then the fifth one, that's fine.
I'm good with that.
So I'll move the first four
And
as amended.
interim second?
I'll second.
Okay. So that was Christopherson and Bangu. Anyone want to speak to the first four issues? Okay.
Over here.
Councillor Fair.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the committee for all the work that they've done. It looks like it's really been thoroughly thought out, and I think you guys have come upon some ideas that make a lot of sense and could be really beneficial. So, thanks to the committee.
And Councillor White.
And I echo Councillor Fair's comments. In reference to the shade, I thought the city at one point in time had, there was a plan or something with the things that... Sales, yeah, in there for the shade. And then in the wintertime, however they were set up, they could be taken down in the winter, so they then just straighten out again in the summer, I guess somehow. But I thought the city had done a plan or something for that.
My recollection is we had looked at it at one time and recognized that it was there was so much wind in the Merritt area that the sales would not be adequate for the city for any amount of time. I know we had looked at a structure, and I think we actually had a grant for it at one time.
Well, that's what I thought, there was something, but Base Coast has a company that does those sales and they're quite sturdy actually. But anyhow, I just thought there was something at one point in time that had already been designed or looked at for that somewhere along the line.
Mr. Smith.
I do know that it's been talked about. To my knowledge, there was not a specific design drawn up for it. I got as far as what the idea could theoretically look like, I think, and it is as you had described. But I can say personally, I've read those documents. I haven't ever seen a design for it. But similarly to the back alley, I understand that there may have been a specific design for that. And always embarrassed. Like, I haven't seen it, but I understand it's out there. So this is part of the legwork that we would need to do in bringing a report back for you, is looking at some of those records. And the other thing that I will say is, generally speaking, you can always do a thing. Like, if there's something that you need to be done, it can be done. The question is, how much can it be done for, and are you going to find funding for that outside of tax revenue? So that's always the greater challenge, but in terms of the kind of investigatory work, we can do that. The one question that I would have for council, again, I'm mindful of workloads, particularly for the Planning and Development Services Department right now, and so I would love some kind of clarification as to what your expectation on timelines for this investigation are.
I know that the Economic Development Committee did not talk about timeframes at all, but we did know that the back alley was going to take an awful lot of work and investigation to even get there. The acquiring of the land, I think we've all talked previously, and that's...
I think there's some elements that we can expedite a little bit quicker, and then there are others that I'm just going to be really candid. Development applications right now are going to be, they need to be the focus for the planning and development department. because of the volume that we're seeing. So there are some of these elements, like when we're talking about what the traffic flow changes and some of those specific things that I would have lower down the list, but other items like investigating opportunities for downtown parcel acquisition that we could get on more immediately just because of the time requirement. So so long as council is comfortable with us bringing things forward potentially in piecemeal, knowing that we will address these items, that would be my preference.
And having said that, when we had our strategic planning session the other day, these items were not brought up, so.
Certain ones are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all of them were. They're not on that list, so it'll be.
Well, I think in relationship to the washrooms, as we've talked about with the committee about and everything, that's one of the ones we've been talking about that for 20 some odd years. So I think that would be a little bit higher priority than maybe some of the other ones as well. So that's really important for Spirit Square piece. And I know our committee made recommendation for 5, but I think if you prioritize them, you know, Spirit Square would be the first priority of all the other ones as well. So we'd have no problem prioritizing those.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like I'm comfortable with what the direction from council has been. I'm more just letting you know where staff constraints and times are. And so I think it makes sense for us to not bring all of this back at once, because I can tell you the timelines for that are going to be a little bit longer, but if we can take the items that we can hit off quicker and get them done, we can do that. And then some of the ones that are going to be a little bit more time intensive may not come until
I think when you were in their meetings, I think what the direction was, we certainly like to see at least the Spirit Square washrooms in this year's budget if we could, and I think that would be the highest priority. I think if that was.
Yeah, we will have these items prepared for budget, and I think realistically we can preliminarily explore potential shade options for budget as well, and then if council would prefer that we defer and wait for the opportunity to have grant applications for those projects, you can let us know at that time. But you know me, love hitting at grants if you can.
So just one last comment, Merritt, about this. I just want to let you know that these weren't, a lot of these ideas, most of these ideas were not generated by Councillor Christopher and myself as staff. These ideas were generated and milled around and mushed and everything with the committee. So these are local people, local citizens, local business people. So just so the citizens know out there, this is this committee in action. So I'm really happy with the progress and what was some of the things we were able to accomplish so soon in our committee. So I just want to let everybody know that this was voices from the community. So thanks everyone for helping out there.
Councillor White.
I agree with everybody's comments, and I'm thinking right now it's the end of July already. We're going into August. So if something could be done with the washrooms, because you need them in the winter as well, and then the rest of it can be sort of worked on and prepared over the winter and maybe ready for spring and going into the next summer.
I'm not even sure we could get a washroom in this year for the end of August. It's still not going to happen this year. It may happen.
Well, I'm just saying that the washroom should be the priority because it has been.
But even at that, I'm agreeing it is a priority. But
I understand. I get it.
The grant won't happen.
And even if it isn't grant funded, we're talking about bringing potential project options for the 2022 capital plan.
Yeah.
So this would be a 2022 build, not a 2021 build is what. But recognizing, I'm hearing what council's saying, you're expecting to see it, it is a priority.
Yeah.
10-4, we've heard you loud and clear on that front. So.
And Councillor Christopherson.
I just wanted to reiterate that we're asking staff to investigate options. I'm not prepared to make any decisions until I see dollars.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Some of these are less expensive than others, but some of them are pretty costly. So a lot will depend on what staff reports bring back to us, and I know that they will do so as they are able. So thank you.
We got lots of money.
So that's
the world that we live in.
Okay, and any other want to speak to these 4? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. So let's speak to this other one. I would like to have council direct staff to bring back the report of where we are in this process, to get a past history on this, and because the project has tripled in value from the last time till now, so I'm not exactly sure if all of us still want this. I also worry about the fountain that's already there being a health issue. So, Mr. Smith.
On this one, certainly staff can do it, but realistically we are going to be talking with the previous parties who were really involved in this process, as well as the artist, and I would probably just have them come to council and talk to you directly, so that we're not again, when I'm relaying stories, tradition, things like that, I know I'm not going to give it credit and justice. And so what I'd like to do is just bring those parties back to talk with council directly, and that way you can decide if this is a project that you would like to continue with, or whether you'd like to move another direction with it. The other factor in this is when you're talking about shade and bathrooms and other things, is there's probably going to be some changes to the physical layout, and making sure that whatever you have there is going to jive well together. So, but we can bring a staff report, but ultimately I think having the others come and speak to you directly is going to be the best way of doing it.
That's what I'd like to see. So, can we have a mover?
So, would you like me to change the motion here? Just to investigate?
Sure.
Okay.
Investigate or report, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that council directs staff to bring a report on the Coyote statue in Spirit Square.
Second.
Okay, so that was Christopherson and Luck. And anyone else want to speak to this? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? None carried. Okay, now 9.3, Committee as a Whole Tourism Recommendation. Councillor White, did you? Yeah. Councillor White is gone because of a conflict. This is still a public meeting, so we need to let the public know. So we need a mover and a seconder that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that staff work with TNV to develop a mutually acceptable agreement that would establish TNV as the provider of tourism services for the city, and establish TNV as an eligible entity for collection of a municipal and regional district tax. And that the committee recommend to Council that a consultant be retained to assist with developing and implementing plans to support this transition, with costs of up to $20,000 to come from the Economic Development Fund.
So moved. Second.
Luck and Fair. And anyone want to speak to this? Councillor Bengu.
Thank you, Mayor. I like this idea. I'm happy that we're getting the ball rolling on this. My only concern is the $20,000 for a consultant, and why we require that to help two organizations work together. Thank you.
I think the question of why we require that is the staff needed to do it. We don't have the staff available to do it. Mr. Smith, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, there's multiple things that the consultant would be involved with, but I think the largest is getting the MRDT set up, and that the degree of work that requires, not only in preparing the right materials to be able to assist hoteliers in understanding why this is potentially going to be beneficial, but as Amber said at the meeting, also understanding the implications of how this tax is collected, what the remission process looks like. There's a lot of work that goes into setting up an MRDT, and I think that body of work is one of the fundamental reasons why it hasn't been established over the course of the last 4 years. And so if bringing in a consultant to take on that additional workload versus having, again, staff run this off the side of their desks. I think that you're going to see this up and running sooner, and given the revenue generation potential from an MRDT, I think that this will, the faster you get it done, if it even gets set up 3 months faster, it's going to pay itself off and then some. So I think that this is a fantastic use of funds that will ultimately assist in expediting the setup of the MRDT and bringing the parties together in a manner that is hopefully going to work really well for everyone. So it's largely a capacity thing, but also combined with the fact that this is going to be a large revenue generator. So hopefully that answers the question.
Councillor Christopherson.
Thank you. This has been a long time in coming, and I'm sure there's still going to be growing pains throughout it with two organizations actually working together to work on tourism for the city of Merritt. There's been a lot of misunderstandings, and I'm really delighted to see that at last there's some actual dialogue on the table, and that we're going to make this thing work. So I'd like to commend staff for what they've embarked to do. Thank you.
Anyone else? I agree with Councillor Christopherson's statement. I think it's a big undertaking. I think it's way overdue. The fact that we now have a empty staff position in tourism, we're looking at reorganizing, and we seem to think this is going to be one of the better ways to be able to handle our tourism sector. I don't know what to call it. And it's timely. I think we've got groups now wanting to talk through those growing pains and clear up some of those misunderstandings that we've had in the past. And why would we leave that 3% of tax on the table at the province when we can bring it into our communities? That's the other part to this. Any other comments? I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Can somebody let Councillor White back in the room? Thank you. And are there any notices of motion? See none. Reports from council? Don't see any.
I might just report about our Miss World Tourism that girl.
Can you use your mic?
It was a huge success. The businesses were absolutely thrilled. The attraction groups, the snowmobile club, the mountain biking club, the rodeo grounds. We were at the Little Britches Rodeo. They put on a little show. It was just absolutely so well received, and we were very happy with it. It was a huge, huge success.
Thank you.
Oh, and the next thing is the fishing show will be here in September, and he'll be here for a week.
What's the fishing show?
It's called the West.
The fly fishing?
No, he's a fishing show. The West. West David Fishing Show, anyhow. And he's on all the major stations. He's got 32 million viewers.
Fishing the Wild West?
Wild West Fishing Show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And did you say coming in September?
He'll be here in September, yes. We had to cancel him twice because of the traveling restrictions.
Okay. Okay, seeing no other reports. Before I get to information items, I want to ask council to stay just a few minutes after our meeting. We won't take long. There are no information items that I'm aware of. No? Okay, and so that we will adjourn this meeting.